Good evening. This is try number 2 for October's Kimberbell digital dealer exclusives here at So What. I had a little bit of a mishap with our first try on this, so we're going to give it a shot again. This, as you can see on our screen, is a jar topper, gone batty. So let's take a close look at the instructions for this project. And I'm going to tell you where I went wrong. We're skipping all the basic Kimberbell instructions. I did go ahead and cut my fabric for the wide mouth jar. I have my fabric with my fusible backing already on it. I have gone ahead and cut my felt. I am using actually some different fabrics. I have a white felt. I have a lightweight cutaway stabilizer, embroidery topping in black. Fusible backing is already on my fabric. There's flexi foam, although I'm going to be really honest, I'm going to skip the flexi foam tonight. Wash away topper, I actually have a heat away topper because that was what I had on hand. And wash away stabilizer. And that is already in my hoop. Okay, so if we have any questions, here's what we're doing. This is a 2-part project. We will start with our bat ears and wings. I did really well through the ears, no problem there. And here's what happened with the wings. I did not trim all the way around the outside of the wings, thinking that the design was a little bit different than it is. There is a satin stitch along the bottom because you've been with me long enough to know that I just kind of go, and the satin stitch ended up stitching through felt. So that wasn't really the best option. Okay, so let's go ahead and get back to that point where we are, well, where I was, which is getting the felt for the ears tacked down, the highlight, the center of the ears in pink stitched, the placement stitch for the lower wings, the fabric tacked down and then trimmed. So I'm going to switch cameras now. I'm going to stop the share. And here I am at my machine. Here is my first design loaded on screen. And I'm going to stitch placement stitch. Now, because I'm me, I could fast forward through the design and actually run both placement stitches at once. Because I struggled the last time, which is just my own fault. I'm going to go one step at a time. However, to try and keep this recording a little bit reasonable, I'm going to show you the stop and the start, assuming that my Zoom is happily working for me tonight. So let's go change my camera. Step number 1 is placement stitch for our ears. And I opted to do all of my stitching in black except for the centers of the ears and the nose on the face. So there's placement stitch. Here is tack down for the ears. I am not using tape because the felt has kind of enough texture to it to grip on the stabilizer. I know you heard a little noise. That's an alarm going off on my phone. Our next color is the center on our ears. I'm going to go ahead and thread my machine. With my pink. Oop, sorry, bump the camera. That's always fun. Makes you feel a little bit like you're on the roller coaster. Now, if you decided to maybe do a black bat, and so your felt was black and you wanted the pink, that's another opportunity for us to use a topper. And they do make the topper in pink because you might get some shadow through underneath. So here is one ear center. Pause, and we will be back when we are on to the finish of ear center number 2. So, okay, ear center number 2 is done. Our next stitch will be the placement stitch for our wing fabric. And I'm going to switch over to the black for the remainder of these pieces. You hear some background noise. I have a visitor who just arrived. Whoop. I'm going to leave the camera on for the placement and the tack down. And if you were with me last night, we talked about taking some of our sticky stabilizer scraps and cutting them and making our own strips of tape. So you will see me taping some things down, which I don't normally do. I am doing that utilizing the scraps of stabilizer from last night's class, because that just allows me to continue to use products instead of maybe throwing them away. So there's my placement. Here is my coverage to make sure I am covered on all of the wings. And let's go ahead and stitch that down. Okay, and I can see I missed that edge just by a hair. This is stabilizer, so I'm not worried about stitching through the tape. And I'm gonna hit pause real quickly on my machine, and I'm gonna peel this away, and then I'm gonna look closely at it to see how far off I am. And that's a little bit harder to see. I still have some stabilizer in my way. So this is one of those opportunities for using tweezers that very often come with your scissor kits. So that's off to the edge. I am a little bit concerned that that will show, but it also may get covered up. There's a satin stitch along here, and there's some felt that comes down. So I'm going to go ahead and let it go. But that is a really good reminder that we should always check our fabric sizes. I was fine with the first time around, and this was actually the extra that I cut off rather than starting completely from scratch and getting all new pieces of fabric. So here is tack down on wing number 2. I just put the fabric a little bit too far to the back. I think I've got more than enough clearance here at the back. So through the magic of the pause button, I am going to take the hoop off the machine, trim all the way around these, and I will be right back. Okay, so I have trimmed around both my ears and my wings. And you can see there's a piece of tape here because as I was trimming, I went ahead and goofed up and cut through my stabilizer. So before I get further, this is time to put our felt on the back. So rather than switch cameras, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about what I did here. So I cut through, I just laid another piece of the Wet and Gone or the Aqua Mesh there. But if I had Wet and Gone Tacky or Aqua Mesh Plus, I could, again, utilize the edges of it and make some tape and actually just tape through that with the wash away tape. But since I don't have that as an option right now, I'm not going to. I am going to, however, cover my whole bottom. And I will tell you, I did a quick little bit of cleanup with the threads underneath. I just did a little trimming out of those. I am putting a little bit of tape to put them in place. And then I am flipping this back over and I am rubbing the tape flat from the top, because if I push hard while it's upside down, I run the risk of stretching, especially since I have that hole in that stabilizer there. So let's go back to the machine. You might get a camera view of our visitor who is at the far end of the table here. Okay. And as I put this in, I can see where my felt is. My felt is not flat. So you want to make sure that that is flat there. There we go. And we are going to continue on with our stitching following the actual instructions this time. I tried to run ahead last time. It did not work well. So we're going to tack down to our backing. And then we're going to flip this over and trim on our backside. So this is our tack down stitch, and this is going to be a much heavier stitch than we'd had before. And I'm going to get in here and grab this thread before it gets too caught up in things. And so what this is doing is, in tacking the back down, it is leaving a gap at the top, because that is where we will add some additional felt on the front. And that was what I was not paying attention to the first time I went through this, and I'll just show you. I thought I was smarter, and I got a mess. That's all I got. I got a mess. It happens. Won't be the first time, won't be the last time. So that is proof that I do not always get it right. Now I do have a black bobbin in for this entire project because of the fabrics that I chose. They made the decision to just go ahead with the black bobbin. So they do talk about changing the bobbin thread to match. I just went ahead and had that bobbin thread in. And so I'm going to put you on pause once more while I trim the back. And then I'll show you when the back is trimmed up. Okay, I've gone ahead and trimmed my back because I stitched that other piece of stabilizer in place that will hold everything, so I don't need the tape there anymore. So where we are trimmed around the outsides, oops, sorry, bumped the camera, of the wings and the ears. I keep wanting to call those ears eyes, but they are not. And we are now going to go ahead and do the satin stitch, some highlight stitch on our wings, placement stitch for the upper piece of felt. There will be another piece of felt here on the front. Looks like a pair of eyebrows. We'll stitch those down and trim them, and then we'll take those out of the hoop and we'll move on to step number 2. So here we are for satin stitch and highlight on the wings. This is a fair amount of stitching, so I may go ahead and again put you guys on pause, but let's give it a shot, see how we go. And the reason for pause is honestly just to get the file to upload to YouTube faster. Here comes our satin stitch. Excuse me, it is a fair amount of stitching. You can see how thick and heavy it's going to get. So I'm going to pause and we will come back when the satin stitches are all done. Okay, so we're almost done our satin stitch. Now the highlight stitch is just kind of the lines on the wing, and then it does do a stitch through the satin. I'm going to go ahead and let that run in the black. A little bit out of time, but also because the only threads I grabbed were black and pink. And I don't really think the pink would be appropriate, but you get the detailing there. And then, okay, so I can see that my thread broke. And I think it broke when we hit the satin stitch. So I'm just going to back up. Actually, I'm not going to back up at all. But I am going to rethread my machine. And I am unthreading and rethreading sort of at the same time. So I pulled the thread through and just sort of rethreaded as I don't know how to explain that, as I unthreaded, because it was just loose here. I could see it. So I didn't feel like I needed to pull it out all the way. I just needed to get it long enough to put back through the needle. And this is going to be pretty loud because it's going to stitch through the satin stitch. So it's going to thump a lot. If I come in close, you can't even see that, but there is just a running stitch down the middle of the satin stitch. That does two things. One, it adds a highlight if it was contrasting thread, but two is that's a pretty wide satin stitch, so it helps secure it down. Our next piece will then be the placement stitch for the upper felt. And I'm not changing my thread colors, I'm just going to keep it going. And in fact, I'm going to turn my color stop off on the machine so it doesn't even stop, it'll just move on to the next section. So the placement stitch for my upper felt is the exact same place it was for attaching the backing. That honestly could have probably been skipped, but here we are. my upper felts, and this is the last color for this half of the design. I am 100% sure that it is covering the space that I need it to this time. I am not going to tape it in place because, again, the felt is a little bit grippy. And let's get that tacked down. Looks like a pair of eyebrows. Trim this while it is on the machine. I've been known to do that upon occasion, but this is not the day or the time. Okay, so they are all stitched. I'm going to pause the video and I will show you when they are all cut out. Okay, so I have trimmed my ears and my wings. Okay, and so this is my wing. It's got the white highlight at the top. The back of the wing is white. My ears are white with my little pink centers, and the backs are just solid white. If you were in a rush, you could probably stitch the pink all the way through. If anybody's looking at the back of his ear, I will, or her ear. And I have loaded design number 2. All right, and so we are going to start with, and remember I mentioned that I'm going to skip the foam. So they did have us go back to our standard bobbin thread. I am not going to do that. So we're going to do a placement line. We're going to put our fabric, tack down, and then at color number 4, step number 7 is the foam. So I am going to skip that, but there is a placement line for the foam. I'm actually going to stitch through it, so I'll talk about it. Placing the foam down, tacking the foam down, and trimming. So I'm going to keep stitching up until and through color number 6 on my screen. Okay, so your instructions will reflect that. But on our machine, we're just going to kind of keep going. Oop, I have to hit the go button. So, placement stitch for my background fabric. Tack down for my background fabric. I did not tape my fabric in place, but if you had a smaller piece of fabric, you need to get more precise, you may want to go ahead and do that. Next is our jar lid placement line. I will also mention I did not dissolve the stabilizer along the edges of my ear That is why the instructions tell you to have a Q-tip handy. Okay, next would be our foam placement line. I'm going to actually skip that. I'm going to skip our foam tack down line. And then we are going to move on to our ear placement line. So this is where I put my ears so they can get stitched. We are going to have a placement line, and then we are going to have a tack down line. If I do a quick comparison of my ears, you see how we have that little line? So we want our placement lines to line up with the line on there. And these, because they are so stinking small, we are going to tape them in place. So I want that little bugger to be right there. And I want my left ear, well actually technically it's his right ear or her right ear. It's their right ear. Right there, and let's get those tacked on securely, and then we'll take the tape away. All right, so there's our ears. They are in place. Next will be wing placement line. So that'll be right on the fabric. And if I had put the foam in, you would see little notches in the foam for the wing placements. And there would be little cutouts in the foam for these guys. I am going to tape them down as well. And because I have on my machine the ability to bring my hoop out, I am going to actually bring the hoop out a little bit closer, because it's hard to see that line, because guess what? It was black on black. And that's just almost impossible to see. I am actually using the zoom. If I could get it to show up on screen. It does not want to show up on my screen. Okay, so I can see that little black line right there. And I want to overlap that just about there. And I want to tape my wing down. And I am pinching that tape from both sides of the hoop because the hoop is currently hanging off of the machine bed. Same over here. This one's a little bit easier to see. I want to overlap. Again, I am looking at where I am, getting that in place, pinching from both the top and the bottom of the hoop. And I am now sliding my hoop back up into my machine so it comes back to where we were. And now I'm going to press a little bit harder. So just hold that in place. Whoop, that one shifted on me a little bit. Somebody else did one of these. It wasn't this one, it was the spider. And one set of legs went up, one set of legs went down, and I said, you know what, that's okay. Let's go ahead and tack those down. So that's secured in place. I can take the tape away. Same on wing number 2. And now we are on to getting ready for our face. This is where we're going to use a topper. And that topper will help protect all of these little flappies as we stitch around. So we want to be sure that we put the topper in place. And then we're going to stitch the placement line for the circle. Now, if you're in a rush, because you wouldn't ever be me, you could just go ahead. I know kind of where that is, and if my felt is super big, I'm going to go ahead and just put it down. But I'm going to put the placement line in just so we can see exactly where we are. Okay, so that placement line goes all the way down to the bottom of the jar lid, and then that does a second line to help secure all of the embellishments in place. And now it's time for our face fabric. That's my white felt. We're going to stitch that down. To use that same function that I just did to bring my hoop out to me, to trim. And one of the nice things when we do this, this topper protects, so there's not a much lesser chance of us cutting off the wings that we've just attached. So you see how I can see my topper, it's shiny? And I'm just going to come around and I'm going to cut on top of my topper. All the way around the hoop, not around the hoop, around the head of our bat. It's a little harder to do upside down, but we're going to get her done. Down here at the bottom. Almost there. And there we go. Now, we have one more piece before I look at taking, excuse me, taking the topper off, and that is there's a decorative outline around our head. Again, I've kept all of my threads black at this point, other than the nose. Because I had moved my hoop, I do have this longer stitch, this longer thread tail than I would have if I hadn't moved my hoop forward and backward. We're almost done. We have a nose. The nose will be a pink. Then we have eyes and a little mouth. They'll be in black. And if I had a pink topper, which we do have from Floriani and not Kimberbell, that pink topper, I would use that. Because I do not have that, I am actually, when I go to do the nose, I'm going to take a piece of this topper and put it in place, just enough to give my little nose a little tiny bit of a waft. So here is my nose. And I'm just gonna grab a piece of my topper from up here and put that under my nose. And you'll see me pop it off in just a second before I go to put the black topper down. Don't forget to thread your needle. Now this could be a vampire bat. Color number 14 is actually the little fangs. So I'm going to go ahead and make mine a vampire bat, and I will stitch colors 14 and 15 at the same time with a black topper. Okay, I'm going to peel away my little extra piece. At this point, I'm going to peel away my topper that went all the way around, because I think it will let you see him a little bit better, and that just perforated. So I had the heat away, and that's no problem because we don't see it at all. It perforated nice and easily. And now I have my little face. So we'll start with the fangs and then 2 eyes and a mouth. If you would like your fangs to be a different color, you can absolutely give him little red fangs if you'd like. I'm not going to. I'm going to make sure that they are black, which means I need to remember to change my thread. I'm reminding myself, not you guys, because I know you know. And here is my black thread for the very last time. And then once my stitching is all done, I will peel away my topper. I can cut my jar topper to the outmost ring, and then it's all ready. I'm not going to cut it tonight because I wanted you to see how to get this done. And then I want to go grab some dinner here shortly. So let's get her done. Needle threader. Here comes our eyes and our mouth with our vampire fangs. And this black topper just prevents shadow through from the white felt or the lighter colored felt. There also, I think, was a little highlight on the nose. I forgot to mention that. Fang number 1. Fang number 2, and here come our little eye bubbles. One more eye bubble and then we are all done. And I appreciate you spending a little bit of time with me. Again, oh, my thread came unthreaded. So let's go ahead and back up. I'm going to go back to the jump from the previous eye. There we go. And it didn't break, it just pulled back out of the eye. With all of these layers, honestly, that does not surprise me in the least. We have 2 toppers, we have felts, we have stabilizer behind the felt, we have fabric with the fusible adhesive, and then we have stabilizer in the hoop. That's a lot of layers. So we are just on eyeball number 2. last little piece is his mouth. I know it's hard to see the black on the black. You can see his little fangs there. There's his little mouth. I'm gonna go ahead and bring her back out to me. I'm going to just tear that little topper away gently. There's the highlight on the nose. There's a little face. That's cute. I don't know why it shows up super gray. Oh, there's my color. That was just the reflection. Okay. And so if you want, you can kind of make your wings stand up. Because there is water soluble in these wings, if you got them wet, I would probably do it beforehand. You could dry them. Let that water soluble just dry, wet through the whole thing a little bit. You could probably wet them and dry them with a little bit of dimension, and it would hold, because when that water soluble dissolves, don't rinse it out all the way, but just dissolve it. And then as it hardens again, it acts like a starch. And I could really get some great dimension with my little wings, as opposed to the little flat guy. I don't know what happens if we flopped them in the opposite directions. Now I like the one on the left better. We're gonna need to fold that one up and this one back. So just a little bit more than a flat bat. All right, thanks for joining us. I will get this uploaded to YouTube, and it should be out to everybody sometime Saturday. And again, I apologize for the lateness of this. All right, we'll see you soon. Take care.